Hey YouTube, I just saw an article about how the Pokemon TCG has changed since its inception, like how it's changed since you were a kid. And it got me thinking that with every game that you return to after a long absence, there are things that you just have to accept, and a lot of them are hard truths. And possibly the worst type of person I've found for criticizing games for how they've changed over years is old Clix players. Um, Now these aren't mutually exclusive from they and old Yu-Gi-Oh players often overlap. They aren't in mutually exclusive groups of people. Often the same people who think that Heroclix is bad now are the kind of people who stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh when the weird grey cards started turning up. And that sort of brings me to my first point, which is you've got to accept the game's changed. You've got to accept that's how games work. I don't know what games you've been playing to not see the changes growing, new mechanics coming out, making the game more fresh, making it new, and so on and so forth. Like, the last few Yu-Gi-Oh mechanics certainly haven't been for me, but it didn't stop me playing just because it was a new thing. I mean, I don't understand where people get these notions from. I'm struggling to get back into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh at the moment because of Link Monsters, but I'll get there, and I know I will. The first thing you need to accept is the fact that there are many differences with how Heroclix is played now. There are many new types of mechanic, new things you need to be getting, especially if you want to be playing it competitively, and it's not the same as it used to be. And the game wasn't better before cards were made. The game definitely wasn't better before cards were made. How could you say special powers are not as good as everyone having the same powers? I don't understand. The game wasn't better before cards came out. The game wasn't better before resources started. The game has always had a meta element to it, and it always will. And that is just the same that can be said for most games. The difference with Clix is it's nowhere near as bad as a lot of games. How a lot of games have changed over the years. There's nowhere near as much of a power creep because it's a much more balanced game. I mean, if you look at how Vanguard started and how balanced that was and how ridiculous it is now, it's nowhere near the same as Clix because you can play something and assuming a lot of bad luck on their side, good luck on your side, anything could be anything. And especially if you're a spectacularly better player than the other person, regardless of what they're using. So, yeah, the first thing you need to accept is all of this new stuff isn't bad. It might be a bit scary at first, it might take some getting used to, but it's part of the game now, and, that's okay. And you don't need to be intimidated by it, you don't need to think, God, this game's gone downhill. You just need to accept that it is different, it is new, it is stronger, but that is where the game is going. And the next thing you need to accept on that same note is that the rules have changed. And the rules have changed very recently as well. And the game wasn't better before the rule changes come in, although that's a debatable statement in some cases. Mystics damage! But, the game has grown because of rules changes, because of the changes to powers and abilities, and because of what WizKids have put in to make the game different, to make it fresh, to make it more healthy, and to make it easier to learn. Another debatable statement. But on this note, one thing you need to remember is with the rules changed, the game's changed, the figures have changed. You need new ones. Because most of, and certainly not all of, don't get me wrong, but most of your old figures totally suck. Especially if you're from the it was better before cards came in era, then your figures really need updating. Because there are a lot of good figures out there now. I think probably 8/10 of figures are worth playing nowadays. Most of the stuff that comes out is worth having, especially because of stuff like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set, where they have to make everything really good so it sells to people who don't watch Teenage Ninja those, and you've got to get with the times. Basically, there's plenty of updated versions of the figures you used to enjoy playing. There's loads of new X-Men. There's loads of new Spider-Man family. I don't know, what do people usually like? There's loads of new updated figures. They're really easy to get. People, if you've got a locals and people have been buying loads of bricks, they want rid of all that crap. So they probably don't even want it. They probably don't want anything for it. You can probably get commons really easily now. If someone's been buying loads of X-Men bricks, for example, they'll have plenty of copies of all the X-Men in common that you can just play. And if you wanted to get into the competitive scene, you've got to accept that this is the most expensive Clix has ever been. And it's only getting more expensive. And, you know, it will be more expensive. This isn't the most expensive point Clix will ever be at. And it's going to keep going up because kids keep putting up the price of boosters. They keep making meta things better. So people will pay more for them because they're more worth buying. And people will charge more for them. And because prices naturally are going up because of the price of boosters, a brick is now mathematically not worth buying. Even with the primes put back in. Although maybe not, I don't know. I haven't really looked at the value of the Thor set. But if you assume a common isn't worth, say, £2 or $2 or $3 or whatever, which they shouldn't be, then a brick is not worth having. And that is one thing that is a problem with the game, is that a lot of the figures are getting better, but a lot of the commons and stuff are starting to get a lot more expensive. And that's really not how rarity is supposed to work. That is a sad thing you are going to have to accept, but it does pay off every once in a while when you do actually pull something good. You know, don't weigh yourself down with whether you're going to get super rares and chases and your boosters straight away, but, you know, definitely be willing to spend what you are spending on, say, individual figures and stuff. That isn't to say I think they're not worth the money. The rarity, it doesn't really work for me. A lot of the reason I haven't played a lot of other miniatures games is because it's ridiculously expensive for like single miniatures and stuff, but Clix is getting there, and you know, you sort of need to accept that too, as all of us actual frequent players do. The next thing you need to accept is that it is a growing game, and although we barely had any indie sets recently, I need to put these down. Why do I keep playing with these? Although we haven't had a lot of indie sets recently, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set is modern age, and you need to accept stuff like that. You know, gone are the days when we had a rapid succession of Gears of War sets and Street Fighter sets and Assassin's Creed sets and Yu-Gi-Oh sets and all that stuff, and that was fine. That was fun for competitive play, for friendly play, that needed to, you know, be good, but, you know, it wasn't part of tournament play. Ninja Turtles are, and it's not even Ninja Turtles that I'm on about. When people complain about you mixing universes, that is the point of Heroclix. You're supposed to have Marvel and DC. Well, not supposed to, but you're supposed to be able to. And when people who don't really play anymore start complaining about you mixing universes, you just think, what the fuck, man? Like, that's the point of the game. I don't know. It's a pet peeve of mine. As you may have noticed, a lot of this is pet peeves of mine. But the important thing to remember is that this isn't like Yu-Gi-Oh! You come back to it 10 years later and, you know, you could still use all your old stuff. Some of it still might be pretty good, you know. There's figures from very ancient sets that are still, you know, usable, sort of. But the fact is, your really good Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck, which is no longer good, isn't necessarily the same concept. But you definitely need to read up on what's new, and you definitely need to get some new stuff. You definitely need to have less of a cynical view than most of the people who try to get back into the game and fail. Because basically, if you don't accept these steps, then you're going to start playing the game, you're going to lose, you're not going to have a fun time of it, you're going to stop playing again for whatever reason you stopped playing in the first place. Except you're going to have a much harder time of it playing against all this new stuff, and it's going to be really difficult for you. So, you know, it's definitely not the worst game to get back into. It's, you know, it's really easy to do so. Just buy a Fast Forces and you're sorted. There's some really good ones out there now. You're not going to have a map, but, you know, there's some really good ones out there now. And they're actually starting to do starter sets again as well. Just watch out for the starter set of the What If set, because the rules aren't correct anymore. Thanks, WizKids. I think that is generally all the thoughts I have on the matter. Just, you're going to have to pay into it. a bit at least, you're going to have to accept that things have changed. And you're going to have to accept that it's not a bad thing. It's a growing game. If you enjoy the game, then it doesn't matter what other people are using. It doesn't matter what exists out there now. And it's all going to be fine. So have fun playing Heroclix again. Please subscribe to my channel for more videos. And thank you for watching.